Welcome back to Weddy TV. In this episode, we're going to talk a little bit about your dive day strategy. Strategy includes when it's best to head in shallow to look for fish and when it might be better to head out deeper. This particular day was a perfect example of this as we managed to nail the conditions and the strategy. With it being a rather high tide in the morning, we decided to head right up in the shallows and target snapper while it was still reasonably early in the morning and we had favourable sun direction. Take note on these sequences the angle of the sun, as this is so important. This nice big snapper had cruised in shallow and couldn't see me as I was silhouetted through the sun. A lot of fish species like to move in shallow to feed around high tide. They can go right up shallow and feed on a lot of the crustaceans and shellfish. At low tide, they'll tend to move away from the shallows. A quick tip if you're struggling to get your spear out of your fish, especially in this case where it's gone through some hard bone. I leave the fish on the end of the spear, engage the spear back in its mechanism so I can twist the fish and get more leverage to get the flopper out. Straight into my Weddy large float boat to keep safe. The shallows were absolutely alive with fish. Notice the silver drummer moving around, the red moki. There's also a little bit of a surge which makes it a little bit more enticing and exciting for the fish. I've got to really have my wits about me because this varying terrain, there could be a snapper anywhere. A likely looking spot, a prominent rock, and notice the sun angle is perfect again. I really need to take my time, as in these conditions it's likely the snapper will be moving around. This is almost perfect visibility for snapper snooping. The Reef Pro Carbon in 100 or 110 centimeters is the perfect spear gun for this sort of spearfishing.
Yeah, 2 kilos. I would have been happy with that.
I see why you were looking for crays under the boat, boy.
Dan had very similar luck getting onto lots of snapper in the shallows. It was time to head out deeper.
Oh, the good old snapper days, eh?
Got him?
Yeah.
With around about 20 metres visibility, this is an absolute luxury to have in New Zealand. Now that we've headed out into some deeper country, we need to find some structure that's facing into the current. So before you head out for your dive day, it's worth checking the tide charts to see which way the tide's going to move throughout the day. Then you're able to plan successfully to dive the right spots at the right time. And sure enough, once we got onto a nice bit of reef with plenty of current, there was lots of kingfish feeding. After a successful morning getting plenty of snapper in the shallows, kingfish weren't on the target list, but still enjoyable to see. Isolated reef structure like this that sits out on the sand tends to be pretty consistent to have lots of fish, as it's never going to be in tide shadow. And by tide shadow, I mean it protrudes right out and catches either side of the current cycle. The closer your bit of reef is to an island or inside a bay, it's likely to get sheltered from the current, which isn't so good for targeting fish. Dan is spoilt for choice with all these nice kingfish circling him on the bottom, most of them being anywhere from 10 to 20 kilos. With this clear water, it's easy to cover more ground, as I can see things from the surface, like this nice John Dory, trying to sneak up on these demoiselles to eat them. an unfortunate situation as I've hit a non-target species in this red moki. I'm going to do my best to get it off the spear and see if this spear hole is not too fatal. It is away from the spine and the head, so fish can be pretty resilient. It's not looking good, but all of a sudden it wakes up and heads off. Not long after, I notice Dan makes a dive and a beeline for a fish. Likely to be another target species, the giant boarfish. So rather than pop my head out of the water and ask him, I head straight down. And sure enough, there he is. Giant boarfish like this broken up ground where they move in during the summer months to feed on worms and also spawn. As the tidal flow slows during the day, we like to head further offshore so we can try catch more of that current without it being impeded by any islands or rocks that we're nearby. As mentioned earlier, these low-lying bits of reef can be great places to dive for most of the day. If you look carefully, you can spot this boarfish from the surface. It didn't matter where we went today, there just seemed to be boarfish all over the place. Soon after, we found another nice giant boarfish and John was on the hunt. A good shot secured this fish. It was great to see such big numbers of kahawai out on this edge. It's certainly not as common of a sight as it used to be. I had put the spear gun down for the day, as Dan had dropped my other spear gun, so I had spent time looking for it on the bottom. And while looking for it, of course, we saw more boarfish. If you've got really good eyes, you'll also see this nice John Dory parked up between two bits of kelp. So I figured I'd try with my knife and see if I could get it. She was a bit fast for me, and after 2 attempts and nearly losing my GoPro, I figured it was better to just leave it alone. That ended an absolutely amazing day in the water. Everything seemed to work out to plan. Targeting the shallows in the morning while the tide was high, then heading offshore as the tide dropped, targeting other deep water species.